Welcome to Burning the Pages, a series where I look at some of the original fiction I wrote as a teenager and make fun of it as an adult. I'm your host, the Edgelordess. The first series of fiction we'll be covering on this season is the genesis of my work of fiction called The Elite Senshi. This video serves as a prologue to the series and has been split into separate parts for my viewers to understand the history and certain elements within the Elite Senshi canon. Elite Senshi was originally titled Girl Club when I was in kindergarten. The series had the same premise as Sailor Moon, except I was the main character and my friends would be the equivalent to the Sailor Scouts. The villains were portrayed by those who bullied me, and I'll go more into the characters in another part of this video, but for now, let's focus on the foundation of the series. Girl Club was the longest known project I have worked on, as I started the series when I was in kindergarten around 2001 and stopped the series around 2014. Now, when I say I've worked on this series for 13 years, I don't mean by starting from episode 1 and keep publishing episodes until 2014. I meant that I took the George Lucas approach and was constantly updating the series. Though no matter how many times I revised the series would always be a shit show. Girl Club started as a series of comics that never saw the light of day, thankfully. I never did keep the drawings that little 5-year-old me made. The drawings and stories that did make it on the internet were published around 2008 to 2014. Before I became an internet reviewer, I wanted to become a manga artist. Sort of. The dream was pushed on by my family when they saw me draw a stick figure of Sailor Moon at the age of 5, and then they just decided I was going to be a comic book artist. So, trying to be the good kid I was, I tried to meet their expectations. And if you're going to write a comic book, you're going to need a story, right? One thing I enjoyed in school was creative writing. I wasn't good in any other subject other than writing. I mean, my grammar and spelling were always a struggle, but I did enjoy writing stories. If my 3rd grade teacher assigned me to write a 1-page paper, I'd make it 10. And because I sucked at every other subject, this only excited my family more because I had something I was actually good at. Since I grew up on the age of the internet, I was no stranger to posting my own content online. As I grew older, I started to notice a weird trend when it came to stories I wrote for fun and the comics I drew. They did not tell linear stories. I would write chapter 1 of a story, but then I would get bored and then jump to chapter 20, still be bored, jump back to chapter 2, to chapter 6, to chapter 18, and all over the place. Long story short, I had and still have a short attention span. If I have an idea, I need to put it on paper as soon as possible, regardless if the idea fits in the story. When it comes to Girl Club / Elite Senshi, the published chapters were not in a coherent order. You see, I had this grand idea of making my series an actual anime, and wanted the series to be 8 seasons in length, with 400 episodes. Only 15 chapters were actually published. This mini-series will be tackling the episodes in a linear order. On screen are the episodes produced. Each review will cover 1 episode, though in some cases, episodes can be a bit weird, as sometimes they can be 2 or 3 episodes in one. To keep things simple, multi-parters are considered 1 episode. Also, don't ask me what happened to Season 4, apparently it never existed. So how come I changed the series name to Elite Senshi? This change happened when I was in 6th grade. YouTube was in its infant stages and people would post Sailor Moon episodes online. From YouTube, I discovered that Sailor Moon originally came from Japan. So I wanted to make my series more Japanese by giving it a Japanese name. Now, as an adult, the name Elite Senshi makes me cringe. This is because I hate stories that mix random Japanese words in a story that's 99% English. For those who don't know anything about the Japanese language, Senshi means soldier. Most teenagers on fanfiction.net will do this, especially if the fanfiction is of an anime. As an adult critic, this trope bothers the hell out of me. What I mean is the author will throw in random words that already have an English meaning and replace them with Japanese ones when the whole story is written entirely in English. For example, instead of saying hi or hello, konnichiwa is said instead, and then the next line of dialogue is in English. For example, he gave her a rose, and she blushed and said, "Arigato, Hanzo-kun." Hanzo retreated the rose and looked at Sakura in confusion. "I thought we were speaking English." Sakura cocked her head. "Nani? But we're in Japan. We should be speaking Nihongo." See my point? If you're going to write a story in English, write it in English. Don't add random Japanese words because you think your story sounds cute, cool, or authentic. In reality, it looks really dorky. I'm okay with Japanese name suffixes inserted in English written fiction. It's just random words that drive me nuts. Thankfully, the only random word tossed around in this series is senshi. The series also uses Japanese suffixes to character names to set the tone that the series takes place in Japan. I mentioned earlier in this video that the series is based off My Friends and Me, except it's more complicated than that. Let me explain in the second part of this video. There were a lot of issues keeping up with continuity during the early stages of Girl Club before the series became the Elite Senshi. You see, Girl Club's characters were based off my friends in real life. However, the friendships I had at the time were short-term, so different people kept replacing pre-existing roles of the series. For example, let's say in 2nd grade I had a friend named Ellie. I'd make the character of Ellie, whose alter ego would be Red Fire when she became a magical girl. Now, let's say in real life, Ellie moved away by the time we were supposed to be in 3rd grade. I'd take another friend and replace Ellie's role. We'll name this friend Jessica, who will then portray Red Fire, but whose civilian name is now Jessica. None of the characters would ever question what happened to Ellie and why she became Jessica. And it gets even funnier when it comes to the appearances of these characters. Now let's say Ellie's a blonde, skinny girl with freckles, and Jessica would be this tall, dark-skinned girl with an afro. No one would ever question how Ellie changed races, got taller, or gained any of these new physical traits in the span of a couple episodes. When it comes to the magical girl identities in Girl Club, the names would be a color and a superpower. So we had Pink Love, Blue Ice, Red Fire, Green Thunder, Orange Water. Wait, water isn't orange. Orange Water was my magical girl persona, and at the time I was starting to notice a trend when it came to magical girl shows I watched. The leader was always wearing pink, except I wasn't a huge fan of pink, and I always found water to be a cool elemental ability. I didn't want to go with black, which was and still is my favorite color, since it would be weird to have a rainbow theme and then have the leader represent the absence of color. Originally I was going to be lime water, since my favorite Crayola crayon color was lime green. However, I thought that name was stupid and chose a different citrus instead. Orange, and orange was a color I was fond of. And I could have gone with another shade of blue too, but fun fact, I actually don't like most shades of blue. Also, I can't swim in real life, and I have a fear of the ocean. You know, the more I think about this, I'm starting to view my avatar character as my polar opposite. Around high school, when I started publishing episodes on DeviantArt, consistency was starting to happen a bit more as I became more serious about becoming a manga artist. The characters were given Japanese names, and these names would not change, even if these friends were not permanent. I eventually decided on a final design for all the characters, so even if I was no longer friends with Jessica, I would still keep my character design that resembled her. Also, when it came to the magical girl alter egos, I made another huge change to the series. In Girl Club, the magical girl alter egos would be a color and a power. In Elite Senshi, the magical girl names would be a color and then the word goddess. So I talked a lot about the protagonist in the series, but what about the antagonist? In the infant stages of Girl Club, the antagonist group was called the Boy Club, and it consisted of my younger brother's guy friends. However, in 3rd grade there was another big change to the antagonist group. The group would consist of both male and female characters and were represented by those who bullied me regardless of gender. Since the Boy Club couldn't have girls in it, I renamed the antagonist organization to the Negaverse because I was so creative. In late middle school to early high school, I created original characters with original designs. And I put air quotes on original because these were just knockoffs of villains from other fandoms I was part of at the time. Also, what magical girl show doesn't have a sexy shonen love interest? You see, I didn't have any guy friends that I considered attractive at the time, so there wasn't really a love interest character until I started liking guys. Kinda. As I was learning more about anime, I decided Girl Club would be the English localized name for Elite Senshi. Just like how Tokyo Mew Mew became Mew Mew Power, or Bersojo Senshi Sailor Moon became Sailor Moon. And because series were being brought to the States, characters were given English names. Usagi became Serena, Ichigo became Zoe, and Tomoyo became Madison. Speaking of characters... Throughout Elite Senshi, you're going to see a boatload of characters. This portion of the video is to introduce important characters to the series. And while some of these goddesses or Senshi are based off my childhood friends, almost none of these people I talk to in my adult life, nor do I think that these people are actively seeking me out, so I'm comfortable saying their first names on my show. However, I apologize if you're from my elementary to high school years and you're watching this video because I treated all my characters with little respect. Even my character. And no one was safe in the story. The backstories I gave to the characters, even my character, are mostly works of fiction. Very rarely do these backstories reflect off the original person's life. I will only be focused on the fictionalized characters, not the personal lives of the people that these characters are based off of. First, there's my character. The localized name would be my name, Kayla. My Japanese name was Kyra, though it was pronounced Kira, even though EI in Japanese makes more of an A sound. Kira's senshi name is the Orange Goddess and controls the power of water, sometimes light, and sound. She had ninja abilities, is a princess, has a tragic backstory of sexual abuse that is just there for the sake of being edgy. We'll talk more about it in another section of this video. Kira holds the power of the magical aquamarine crystal that is literally in her pussy. I am not making this up. Well, actually I am, since I wrote this, but I'm serious. Her godlike powers come from her hoo-ha. It's literally the whole plot of Season 5. Basically, the crystal gives her godlike powers, kind of like how the silver crystal is to Princess Serenity. Junko is Jennifer in the English localization. Her senshi name is the Purple Goddess and has the powers of illusion and is kinda, sorta, not really psychic. You'll know why once we get to the first movie review. Anyway, Junko is Kira's best friend. They've known each other since birth, and because of this, Kira refers to Junko and her younger sister Chi as her cousins. Junko and Chi share the same background, which is non-existent. It's known that they're rich, popular, and cool, but really that's about it. Also, Kira has this girl crush on Junko, and Junko kind of hits on Kira as well. However, Kira is 100% straight, so this relationship is not canon. Chi, or Chelsea in the English localization, is the Blue Goddess, the goddess of ice and snow. Chi and Junko are 3 years apart. Chi's character also has to be the most unfortunate, as she's the worst character in the series when she's supposed to be a protagonist. She's incredibly stupid, vain, and everyone, even the narrator, shits on her. Again, sorry to the person this character is based off of. This is why I didn't become a novelist. Satomi, or Eileen, is the Red Goddess, the goddess of fire. She's quiet and homeless, and literally lives with wolves. Also, she's a furry, just 'cause. Her best friend is the Pink Goddess, Megumi, and that's really all to Satomi. Megumi, or Courtney, is the Pink Goddess, the goddess of love. Courtney, goddess of love. Oh my god. My headcanon is she's portrayed by Courtney Love and she murdered her husband. Now that would be a cool character. Megumi is very similar to Lita or Makoto from Sailor Moon. She's a tomboy, tall, likes to box, and enjoys baking. Megumi also has a rivalry with Koru, who is the Green Goddess. It is noted that Megumi is a bisexual, and she'll make constant attempts to flirt with Kira and Kira's boyfriend. Jesus, just everyone wants Kira now, don't they? Koru, or Amanda, is the Green Goddess, sometimes known as the Static Beauty. She is a ripoff of the live-action incarnation of Sailor Venus. Both characters have secret identities that are linked with their past lives. Both are incredibly popular, even in their civilian forms. Both are bitches and come off as cool, but serve to those who they consider worthy. There are other goddesses as seasons progress, but the ones mentioned are the most prominent. We'll talk about the other senshi as they appear, as none of them are that important. Also, this next group of characters don't have any concept art and will be represented with various other fictional characters. So, let's talk about villains. Only one of them's relevant. The big bad's name was Queen Rubia. I don't want to give her character away just yet, as we only see her in 2 or 3 episodes and there isn't a lot to her, but what I will say about Rubia is her 2 qualities are evil and ugly, because I was so creative. Diaspro is Rubia's twin sister. Like Rubia, I don't want to give her character away too soon, as we only see her in 2 episodes, but her 2 qualities are pretty and nice. Now on to supporting characters. First, there's Toji, Kira's talking cat. He's friendly and nerdy. He enjoys reading comic books and playing video games. Toji can also become a human at will, kind of. He'll still have cat ears on his head, as well as a tail that only the goddesses can see. There's also supposed to be 2 other supporting mascot characters, Miku and Moo. Miku is Koru's talking cat, and Moo is a talking bunny that belongs to another senshi introduced in a later season named Midori. These characters are mentioned, but literally don't do anything in the series because they're just like too many characters. Speaking of too many characters, there's also Kira's civilian friends. There's 4 of them, but only 2 of them actually do something in the story. Kame and Michi. Michi is a shy girl who's really dense and naive, and Kame is mean and vain. It's noted that Kira hates all her civilian friends and just hangs out with them for the sake of being a normal teenager. Kokoro and Goku serve as minor antagonists to the senshi in their civilian forms. They are brother and sister, but also in this incestuous polyamorous relationship. Kokoro will flirt with Kira's boyfriend, and Goku is the school pimp, but mostly flirts with Kira. Goku's also 27 years old and somehow still in high school. And the last character is the most complicated character to talk about, Kira's boyfriend. You see, Elite Senshi was in this strange multiverse with Naruto and Death Note. There are no notebooks that kill people, or ninjas with supernatural abilities in the series, but there's two character representatives from both of their respective series. I hinted earlier that when it came to the love interest of the series, I just ripped off another anime character. So, who is Kira's boyfriend anyway? His name is Deidara. He looks like Deidara from Naruto, though just without the ninja attire. Kinda. His personality is the cool bad boy archetype and is horny all the time. He also has an alter ego with the name of, get this, the Ninja of the Night, who is slightly more useful than Tuxedo Mask was in the 90s Sailor Moon anime, but my character was more useful because he threw a knife, not a rose. Surprisingly, this Deidara can't blow shit up like he does in Naruto, but is still considered a ninja. Deidara is also related to Misa Amane from Death Note in order to give Deidara more character. Because at the time the story was written, Deidara from Naruto was not yet given a backstory. Normally, this is where I would give Misa her character bio, but she's only mentioned in the series but doesn't contribute to anything. And with all the characters mentioned, let's talk about plot and themes. Each season has their own unique theme to them. Most of the series rips off Sailor Moon. The series is also influenced by Madoka Magica, Winx Club, and a lesser-known anime called Peach Girl, which to this day has to be one of my favorite animes. And for those who have never seen Peach Girl, it's like Mean Girls, the anime, and it's really sad. There's still comedy, but it's mostly a high school drama that's really sad. And while I was influenced by the series, 15-year-old me did not respect these influences, and we'll talk more in depth as we talk about each individual episode. One thing I'd like to point out in this section of the video is the politics and social issues represented in Elite Senshi. Yes, believe it or not, this is a thing in the story. Because I wrote this series at 15, my opinions presented in Elite Senshi have changed over time. So any sexism, racism, classism, or homophobic commentary presented in the narrative are not reflective of my views as an adult. I've grown, and now I know better about these issues. Also, I should probably mention the small elephant in the room. I wrote these stories around early high school, still going through my emo phase. Most edgy emo kids who wrote fiction like to add sexual assault towards female characters, and these scenes can be disturbing to some. While Elite Senshi isn't graphic and sexual in nature, it still can be an uncomfortable subject, especially the way that I, the author, handled the events in the story. At 15, I really couldn't comprehend why rape or sexual assaults happen. My theory was if a guy rapes a woman, it means that he loves her and he wants to show it to her. He's still not mentally sound, but deep down the rapist truly loved his victim, and how I wrote the victim and her circumstances were not appropriate either. If the character was raped, one of three things would happen. She would cry for about an hour, but then would be okay with it the next day. She would not feel an ounce of trauma in the future without any sort of counseling or legal enforcement unless the plot said so. The second outcome was, if the character already had a significant other and the character was raped, she would go to her boyfriend, have sex with him, and that would somehow erase the trauma of being raped. And the third thing that would happen is she was secretly okay with it and she was pretending not to enjoy it just for the sake of doing so. This doesn't happen in Elite Senshi per se, but it did happen in my other works of fan and original fiction. I'm 22 years old now, and I no longer look at this topic in such a manner. I've dealt with sexual harassment and assault myself. And ironically, these were happening while I was writing the series. It's a serious subject and it has some really disgusting and disturbing consequences. If you're a victim of sexual assault and are easily triggered by the subject, I do not recommend watching this miniseries, as it seems to be a common occurrence within my works of fiction between ages 11 to 18. Now, while reading this with a group of friends as an adult, one person pointed out to me that I was just presenting a common fantasy amongst women, the rape fantasy. And according to Psychology Today, about 57% of women have that fantasy, myself included. And my friend would be correct for pointing this form of expression out. However, when it comes to any works of fiction, whether the occurrence is an actual danger or fetish fuel, the artist needs to portray it in a way to give the viewers or readers that sense. If we take the scene from Sailor Moon where Princess Serenity is kidnapped by Prince Diamond, it is implied sexual assault, but the scene is very erotic. It's not violent, but it implies sexual assault. Now compare this scene to the rape scene in Clockwork Orange. This scene is dark, violent, and not at all sexy, and it's hard to watch. In the context of Elite Senshi, there's no central focus. It's all over the place. What is emphasized in one episode may be different in the next, but with the sexual assault thing, it's kind of there just to build character, which most media critics agree that this is lazy writing. I'm not saying sexual assault does not develop a good character, but if that's the only backstory given to the character, it seems very one-dimensional. How does the character cope with being a victim? Do they have any other backstory? No? Well, then that's bad writing. So you may be asking me, how will I be reviewing this very lengthy series? Unlike Adrian's Return, a fanfiction review I did in my early days of reviewing, I will be paraphrasing most of Elite Senshi. Certain sections will be read word by word, but not the entire story. This is because stories can go on for 4,000 to 7,000 words. Other times the writing's very clunky. For example, the context for this scene is the Elite Senshi are battling a monster and the Orange Goddess is going to use a super strong attack and she will eventually need her team to help her or else she'll die or something. Toji comes in and tells the group that they have to do a new group attack. Green, Koru called as she activated her wand. Blue, she called as her wand activated. Purple, Junko called as her wand activated. Pink, Megumi called as her wand activated. Rainbow healing magic! They all yelled. I'll make commentary about certain scenes and events that take place in the story, as I did with Adrian's Return, as it's really fun to review shitty fanfiction. However, there's a twist. Back in 2014, when I made that episode, the story excerpts would be this ugly wall of text. Instead of recreating those boring visuals, I'll be presenting the story in the style of a JRPG, if some of the visuals in this video haven't already told you so. This means I have to draw some of my old characters again. Yay. Also, I can't draw as an adult. Yay. However, only the primary Senshi will be drawn with a certain set of poses and expressions. Which is why in the character portion I said I'd have other fictional characters represent characters I didn't draw when I was in the process of making Elite Senshi. And if my drawings look shitty, I'm sorry, I can't hire an artist who could replicate the style I had at 15. Though, if you ask me, my style hasn't even changed at all. And you could suggest that I could vector some of my old drawings. The problem is, that would look really tacky. I could vector my traditional drawings, but they mostly consist of Kira and Koru. There's only 2 or 3 images of Junko and Satomi that were actually made, and those are mostly black and white. As for Megumi, I never hand-drawn her. There's only digital images of her. I thought it would make sense for me to draw these characters again, the same way I did back when I was creating the series. It's a tedious process, but hey, what can I do? So you may be wondering, what caused me to stop drawing? Because even when I retired the series, I was still drawing. I didn't want to draw for quite a few reasons. Number 1, I felt more pressured by my family and friends to draw, and it didn't feel like a hobby anymore. Number 2, my short attention span prevented me from accomplishing such tasks. Number 3, I wasn't happy with the outcomes of my drawings at the time. Number 4, drawing is a task that requires uniformity of style, which is something I am physically unable to do. And number 5, I wanted to explore other avenues when it comes to hobbies and career paths, and not just drawing. As for why I made this review series, it's more than just making fun of myself, but rather teaching young writers of this sort of fiction by using my garbage as an example. Now, keep in mind, I am not an expert writer, nor do I claim I'm a great writer, because honestly, I'm not. However, I noticed there's very few video tutorials on such a complicated task. I am aware that there are tutorials about writing online, but I feel that they're very vague. I made this series for adolescents and young adults who are writing their own fiction, whether it be fan fiction or original series, because it's harder for them to take criticism. For them, it feels more like an attack, even if the comment doesn't have an ounce of malice in it. Instead of writing a comment on one of their stories, I think it might be better to make fun of some of my work I wrote when I was their age. That way, the young viewer will notice the similar flaws that they have in their writing and know how to fix them before posting their story online. Also, keep in mind that no story or any media is perfect. What is great to person A may not be great for person B. And then there will be commenters that will make some rude comments. However, I'm making this review series so you can get past your insecurities and apply new tools to your story and of course make you laugh along the way. This review series I'll be doing simultaneously with my music review series. Originally I had planned to make this a summer exclusive series, but since video editing and writing takes up a lot of hours of my week, I'll be working on both series throughout the year. So grab your transformation trinket and become a magical girl, because we're about to dive into Elite Senshi episodes 1 and 2 in the next video. See you next time.